Well, hello, everyone. Good evening. So excited to welcome you all tonight for a very special Black Swan Community Hour. I'm Dr. Elaine Stogberg, owner of Black Swan Real Estate, and I usually host this with my darling husband, Nick, but tonight I'm so excited to welcome our first ever guest, Dr. Weili Gray, friend of mine, fellow physician, really just an amazing woman. So excited to share her with you all tonight, and particularly this time of year. By way of introduction, Dr. Gray is a physician. She lives in Vermont. She's a mom, a wife, and she is a life planner. So she has a really unique skill set with three really special questions that we're going to go through tonight around the concept of life planning. And I'll let her describe it in full detail. And we'll be able to do hopefully some shares tonight. So if you're in a sharing mood, we'd love to make this interactive to really learn from each other. And then we'll also have a worksheet that everyone can go through. And my hope is that this is an interactive time, that at minimum you're doing the worksheet yourself and really digging into this and really getting value out of, getting the answers for yourself for these questions, but then sharing and learning from each other too, and especially this time of year. So as many of you know, goal setting, planning, visioning, kind of all of those words, they're so important to me as a person, to us as a company. And I really think that these skill sets are what has propelled our real estate company so far so quickly. And so I love to share them because they really are just truly life-changing. Last year for our community hour, we did a two-part goal setting workshop in November and December around visioning and really using that skill. A lot of what we're doing tonight with life planning with Weili is visioning as well. But feel free to go back and look at those community hours if you really want to dive deep into visioning exercises. And then tonight we're going to dive into life planning. So without further ado, Weili.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Elaine, and everybody. I'm just so honored to be here. I've always, I first admire Elaine from afar because I've heard her speak at some live events on the web. This is back, when we were still in the middle of the pandemic. And, every time she opened her mouth and just spoke words, I was just always blown away. So when I started a podcast, the Dare to Dream Physician podcast, she was one of the first guests I wanted to talk to and invited. So that's actually how I first got to know Elaine, is just interviewing her, listening to her life story, which is just so amazing. And it's just an honor. It's an honor to be here. And even in that time, in the last year and a half or so, since I last interviewed her and put her interview out on my podcast, I've just seen amazing things happen with Black Swan Real Estate and with her life. And so this is I just love being able to witness her dreams coming true in real time. And so before we go into life planning, I just want to talk a little bit about how, I don't know if Elaine mentioned this, but I am also an investor, recently became an investor with Black Swan Real Estate. And so I just wanted to share my story with that. So ever since I kind of heard about Elaine's story and, how she grew up in a very in sort of a struggling household that was very unstable, and having access to safe and stable housing was was just a big issue for her. And how, in a very short time in her life, she kind of came full circle, and Nick and Elaine and their family business is now providing safe, affordable, quality housing to tenants. And that that really stuck with me, when I first met her. And recently I had a very heartbreaking event in my life where I lost my father. And as a result of that, I came upon a small financial windfall. So certainly wasn't enough money so that I could just, quit my job and for my family of 5 to just, live with financial independence forever. But it was a significant amount of money where we would have needed to, aggressively save for many years to be able to accumulate. And for me, it was just really important, as we examine stories of, let's say, lottery winners, like people who come, like the classic example of people who come across a financial windfall and how that oftentimes ruins their lives. So for me, it was just really important to spend this money in a way that was meaningful, and that was going to have long-lasting legacy. So I sort of thought about it, and I thought of my dad and his life. He was born in China just like me, and he came to the US in the 1980s, and he really had no money. I mean, he grew up in communist China, and it was his relatives in Hong Kong that sort of donated $200 for him to come to the US. And he had 2 suitcases, lost one of them, but the airplane lost one of them, so he came with like 1
Wow.
suitcase
I had not heard
and
that part of the
200
story.
US dollars that his
Devastating.
relatives gave. Yeah. And in his lifetime, and he sort of came actually a month before I was born, and he kind of worked in the US, studied and did a lot of different jobs, and just have these amazing stories of how he sort of made it through as an immigrant. And the whole time, and what always strikes me about my dad is that he just always had this attitude of abundance. And he didn't start off with much money at all, but he's always encouraging others, and was generously in helping others, both financially and just sort of through his actions. And he always had this optimism, like, wow, life is going to get better, even if I lost my luggage, and have very little means, like it's going to work out. And so to me, he always inspired me as someone who had a growth mindset, and who just was bold to be able to pursue the American dream. And so when I thought about the story of my dad, and how do I do right by this small windfall that I got from him, it just sort of was very clear to me that I need to invest this money with Black Swan Real Estate. And because to me, what Elaine and Nick stand for is exactly that. They're people with just this abundant mindset, and they're so generous with their knowledge, with their time, and I'm just so struck by just the company that they're building. The one thing, and I talked to Elaine about how, I was always sort of anti-business. That's why I went into medicine, because I didn't have to worry about business. That's not how I feel now. But the thing that was sort of, I didn't associate with business was integrity. And that's what, Elaine and Nick, they go through business, they build their business based on integrity. They build a business to have a win-win for everybody, to serve the tenants and the clients, to serve their employees, and to serve investors. And so that mindset and that attitude and that culture that they're building was just really impressive to me. And the way that they talk about sort of their relationship with their investors, and having a transparent and honest relationship, in a way where their lawyers are scratching their heads, like, how could you make a document like this? Like, to me, that's that's why I want to invest with them, and why I think that this is just the beginning for them, and why they are so successful. So so anyway, that's my story. And Elaine didn't ask me to share this, but I wanted to put that out there, because that is this is really meaningful. This relationship is just really meaningful to me. And so going,
I just want to say thank you so much, and just honored to be able to carry on in a very small way your father's legacy. And I love where it came from, and his mindset, and just working so hard, and really believing that life would continue to get better. And then here you are today, sharing your skills as a life planner so that we can all have, that sense of a compelling future. What do we want the future to look like for ourselves? And no doubt with as many people as we have on the call, there are some people here that have had an amazing 2022 and are looking to, make 2023 even better. There may be some folks who have, kind of figuratively lost half of their luggage, right? And maybe wondering, maybe it's time for a reset, or 2022, I'm kind of ready for that to wrap up, and let's head into the new year. And I love that the new year is a time to reflect on those things. And I'm just so appreciative that you're here and sharing your life planning skills. So thank you for being here.
Yeah. And that's actually the other point I wanted to make, which is, because I've had some people reach out to me after I posted about, coming on, and, there are some people that reached out to me and said, wow, I would love to invest with Black Swan, but, maybe I'm not an accredited investor yet, or, I don't have that amount of money yet. And I would say, I mean, investing is important, and saving and money, all of that is important. But, and we may or may not, have a financial windfall in our life. But the most important realization is actually we all can reap a windfall, and it's not financial. It's really just the realization that that life is short, that that life is precious, and that we have this one life here, and what we do with that life, and the realization that we actually have the freedom to live the life that we want. And we don't necessarily need a lot of money to do that. It's not even, I mean, money is important, but that's not really the only thing, or really even the most important thing. And so be able to, and which is what I love about this community, because it's not just an investor community, but it's also just, I love how Elaine and Nick, they focus so much on mindset and, how do we live our best life. And so I would say that, we live our best life by starting to realize that this is our life. And the one of the most common things that people say on their deathbed is, I wish that I would have lived a life that was more true to myself, true to what I really wanted, and not a life that was, based on somebody else's desires or expectations. And not to say that it's not important to be in a to be social, right? And to love our family and to have connection, because that's important too. But also when we take the time to really reflect what's really important to us, what do we really value? What's the most important thing? If I were to die in 5 years, or in 1 year, or tomorrow, what are the things that I would have wanted to have that that I could actually start working on now? And so that so that's what we're going to work on. And so I wanted to take maybe 5-10 minutes to just talk a little bit about a framework, kind of a rational framework. I think most of us on this call, are sort of got to where we are because because of maybe education, or we're really good at reasoning and rationalizing. And so I call it a case of left brain hypertrophy. So like we're just really
I like
it's like
that.
we're all about we're all about let's find like this framework, and even maybe numbers. And so I just want to I want to spend a little bit of time doing that. But then, the next section is we're actually going to ditch the left brain and then just move on to really the right brain and the heart space also. But just to kind of think about this in a framework, when we want to think about it, there are sort of certain paradigms, right? So one is sort of like your personal finance philosophy, right? And probably in our society, traditionally by default, there's like the classic American consumerism, right? So where we want to buy things, and buying things on credit is socially acceptable, and just that sort of keeping up with our material possessions, maybe like a nice car and a big house, keeping up with the Joneses, if you will. And unfortunately, that also part of that culture is, starting to be stressed about, being able to pay back debt, and sort of that stress of the finances, and keeping up with that sort of weighing on us. And then sort of on the other side of that is the FIRE movement, right? Which, if you haven't heard, that's the Financial Independence Retire Early movement. And a really good example of this is the book Your Money or Your Life. Right. So the idea of maybe the FIRE movement in its extreme is, you work hard now, you can be extremely frugal. So like, don't have a car, instead, ride your bike to work. So you save money on gas and car insurance. And you're basically trying to save and invest at a really high rate, whether it's, 25% or 50%, or some people at 90%. And if you do this for, 10 to 20 years and you invest that money, then you reach financial independence, where you can just, you don't have to draw on the principal, but you're drawing on the 4% dividends or interest, and you don't have to work. You don't have to work ever again. And so that idea of, the freedom of time and the freedom of having time in a way is so important that for some people, it's worth giving up, having nice things in life, and just really laser focus on trying to save money. And so, and some people that they're really happy doing that. But there's more recently, there's sort of another framework that's come out, and this is part of this I really like. They talks in this book, Bill Perkins, who used to be a hedge fund manager, who's now mostly sort of, I think he does a lot of personal development. He has a book that came out in 2020 called Dying with Net Zero. And so it's a very interesting title, because when you hear that, you think, oh, does that mean, so it's all about spending all my money, right? Spending all the money, and then by the time I die, it's zero. So that is part of what he talks about. But I think the meatier part of his thesis in this book is the idea of maximizing your life deliberately for fulfillment. So not to maximize your net worth, and not to maximize for material possessions that don't really matter, or, do things that don't really matter to you, but in a way to live your life. So whether that means to spend a little more money, so do that, whether, because the goal is not necessarily to die with the highest net worth, right? The goal is not die, but even in this time in our life, or any given time in our life, we're not just trying to acquire a higher net worth. So in a way, this kind of philosophy would critique the FIRE movement and say, wow, that delaying gratification for 5 or 10 or 20 years, I mean, there's value in that time. There are experiences in that time that one would be foregoing, just so for the promise of freedom, in the future. And so maybe that isn't really what we want to maximize life fulfillment. And then what I read also like, that actually Bill Perkins talks about, and it's also an important concept in life planning, is planning time buckets. So, like we've all heard of the bucket list, like, what do we want to do? Do you want to go skydiving? What are the things that you really want to do in your life before you die? So, so that's, one use of the bucket list. But there's also this idea of time buckets, which is, there is a time in our life to do certain things. And sometimes, if we wait too long, then there's sort of a lost opportunity in doing certain things. So an example would be, let's say you really want to try skydiving, right? And so if you wait until age 80 and you're saying, well, it's still on my list, I want to do skydiving, that may not be too late, but for a lot of people, if they have certain health conditions, or that actually may be an opportunity. So they're still alive, but sort of that time bucket to do that activity may actually not be there anymore. Another example would be, spending time with the kids, right? I mean, classic. And Elaine and I have talked about this. Sometimes there's certain things where I'm okay not spending time with the kids on, but there are also things that we may assume, like when the kids are young, we may assume, oh, well, I'm gonna, work really hard now so that in 5 or 8 years, then I can go on these trips with my kids. Well, I mean, for those of you who have older kids, probably know that in 5 or 10 years, they may not want to go on a trip with you, right? So there is also, this idea of there's going to be a time to do certain things. And then if we miss that time, even if we were still alive, that we may actually miss that opportunity. So the idea of, there's a time to sow and there's the time to reap, and, the delay gratification that maybe, I know there's a lot of physicians in the audience and probably other high income earners, we're so good with delay gratification. Like, let's work really hard now so that we can have success later. But we have to just be careful with that, because sometimes that may not mean that we're maximizing our life for fulfillment and for meaning. So that, and then
Everything you're mentioning here reminds me so much of, so I'm a psychiatrist, and when I would have a patient come into the office, and maybe coincidentally they were sharing with me that they had made a plan to retire. They were typical retirement age, and they came to kind of celebrate. And I would of course celebrate with them. You always want to be an optimist and never want to rain on anyone's parade. But my very next question is, well, what's next? Is it a religious community? Is it a volunteer thing? Is it spending time with family? Is it maybe watching grandchildren, having some sort of activity around caregiving? What is that thing that keeps life going? That this race to retirement, or this, at whatever age, but typically the patients that I were talking to were more kind of a traditional retirement age, because I would see that without that next thing, and it was different for everyone. For some people, it was really leaning into a faith community. For other people, it was maybe taking care of grandchildren. For other people, it was a volunteer thing, whatever. Without that thing, the outcomes were not very good. The outcomes were depression, anxiety, restlessness. So that was something that I saw in my clinical work. And then when I started working with investors, so that would be, more like maybe kind of framework one of kind of keeping up with the Joneses, sort of living a sort of a typical American life, getting to retirement age and calling it good, and then having this fantasy of just sort of doing nothing in retirement, not realizing that that probably wouldn't lead to fulfillment. And then when I started doing investor calls, I would hear this very consistent narrative. And it was like, even the same number, I want 10,000 per month in passive income. I would hear the number over and over and over again. Clearly, everyone's reading the same blog posts, listening to the same podcast, and that number is drilled in. But what I found, because I have very close relationships with many of our investors, and so I have many calls with them over time, and even visit with them, bring them to Rochester, all sorts of things, is after a very small amount of passive income, maybe 1,000, like really not enough to like truly change one's life. Like maybe that's covering the grocery bills, but it's not covering, mortgages or healthcare, kind of the big things. But even that number, people started to say the things that I thought would come when I hit, say, 10,000 per month, I'm already feeling, because I feel the freedom. I feel the ability to maybe say no at work, or question the call schedule, or make sure I have a certain holiday that's important to me off, whatever those things are, they got them so much sooner. And so that led to my philosophy with my investors, those that want to talk to me about mindset, to really say that as you're building this pipeline of financial freedom, at the same time, you need to be building this mindset pipeline, and they have to kind of be growing at the same time. It can't be that the financial freedom comes and then poof, then I'll work on my mindset or my life goals or what have you. They have to happen kind of at the same time, because you are becoming the person that you want to be in your financial freedom during the financial freedom path. And it's really those two kind of parallel freedoms that I find really sets people free. And it's so much about everything you just said there about die with zero and really maximize. Of course, we want financial security. Of course, we want financial abundance of being able to say, you know what, I want to take the kids to Europe and we're just going to make it happen. And we're not, we don't have to plan many, many years in advance, or, whatever that thing is for someone, but having that life planning philosophy at the same time to say, well, how am I maximizing who I am as a person in addition to the financial piece. Everything you said there just resonates so much with me, and I'm sure with many people on the call.
Yeah, I love that. And it's a muscle. It's a muscle. So when, we when we start to earn a high income, like we start to get really good at doing that, right? Whether it's doing more shifts or, whatever it is that's bringing in income. So we're like, okay, this is something I can do. And then, but the fallacy is, or the caution is, that's not the only thing you can do, right? And you can also build up your other muscles. You can build up your muscle for connection, for fulfilling relationships, for just adventure, right? For living the life that you want, for curiosity, and so all of those things, if you start to deliberately plan, or just even sit down in a quiet place and think, what are the things that really make me feel alive? I'm alive today. I'm breathing. What does that mean? And so not taking being alive for granted. And we are not just, money generating machines, or net worth builders. That can be part of our goal, but the other part is, how do we maximize our living? And I think I see this, and I will say, I'll share a personal story. I kind of did that for a while, where I finished my training, and then I thought, okay, I like my job, and now, but if I do a little bit more shifts, if I get a little bit more RVUs, then the bonus increases, and so I just sort of, maybe not consciously, but just unintentionally, I started kind of chasing more. I'm like, okay, I'm going to add one more thing and add one more thing to my schedule. And then I thought, well, it would be nice to have a financial goal. So I just pulled it out of a hat, random financial goal. Like, this is what I want in my spreadsheet. And then, so one day, because it's been, now it's not so much, but, for the last 10 years, we've been in this bull market. And so it was sort of luck, right? I looked at my spreadsheet. I'm like, oh, I actually reached my number that I pulled out of a hat. And then I realized that there was really no happiness that came out of that. There wasn't really a lot of people I could just share with. And even, my close friend and sharing with my husband, like it just really didn't bring anything. And then that's when I realized that, if all I do is just focus on the numbers, then I'm not going to have a fulfilling life. And so actually, after that realization, I told myself, I want to, I want to actually try to have a smaller income, which probably means that I'm taking more PTO, which means, so I actually was deliberately trying to say, trying to tell myself, like, sort of challenge my mind and saying, hey, that's the goal that I was unconsciously working for. I'm going to try to work backwards, because that would mean that I actually took more vacation days and, did more spontaneous things. Yeah. Yeah, and so actually, this is a great segue to the last concept before we do the fun right brain activities. And the last concept is, living on autopilot versus living intentionally. So I've already alluded to some of the things where it's so easy for us to live on autopilot. And I think one that I will just say again is, the idea for most people that we're just trying to maximize our money and maximize our net worth. Like, it's sort of almost ingrained, and maybe because it's a number, like, my life, I don't have a number. I mean, some people will use the sort of, they estimate their life expectancy, and then they do like a countdown. So, I mean, that would be a good exercise, because then you're looking and you're like, wow, I'm losing, there's a number every day that I'm losing. But because maybe money is, framed in numbers, and you get statements and you see numbers, it's almost like an unconscious thing that we just want to maximize the numbers. But is that really, so that's more of the autopilot. And it's okay if you decide that's what you want to do, especially for, a certain time in your life. But is that really what you want? So just to be mindful of what are the things that are on autopilot for us. And then the other one, my other favorite, is are we maximizing saying, are we unconsciously trying to maximize our ego or our sort of our desire to get accolades and recognition? While there's nothing wrong with that, but we want to also understand that that may also come with a cost. And that's the going back to the, if someone's on their deathbed and they're saying, I wish I lived a life more true to what I really wanted, as opposed to, what maybe was more socially acceptable or what others wanted, or what I thought others wanted for me. And that's also, I think that has a lot to do with the ego, because a lot of life planning is to really be honest with ourselves. What is it that we want? What's really important to us? Because it's so easy to fill our minds with the things that maybe we think other people want, or what we should want, what we've been socialized to think we should want. And sometimes we have to sort of break down our ego when we realize that that's actually not what we want, right? An example of that is, let's say, somebody maybe was has a leadership position, right? And that they get recognition and they get praise. But at the end of the day, if they don't really enjoy doing that and they actually want to fill their time with doing something else, stepping down from that could seem like a big deal. Like, oh, that's really uncomfortable. People are going to look down on me. But yet that may be the best decision for them for their life. So yeah, that's the other big concept.
It may be the bravest act of leadership, to show people what it means to live authentically.
Yeah. And so I would say also beware of the assumptions that you have. So, the autopilot that you are engaging in, but also those of others. And when I say others, I mean like people who kind of, have authority and are experts. So an example would be, if you go to a financial advisor, usually their hidden assumption is that they want to get you the highest net worth. Or if you go to a doctor, and this is more stereotypical, because I know now we're really good with palliative care conversations and things like that. But usually in medicine, we are just trying to prolong your life, right? So that's sort of our hidden assumption. Or if you go to a travel agent and you have them plan a trip for you, they may just, plan a trip with where you see the most sights, whereas that may not actually be what you want. So you just want to be careful. Whoever you are, whatever expert that you're working with, also just be aware of what they have on autopilot and whether that actually is what you want.
That's so wise. Wow. I've never heard quite that exact thing at the end there before, but it's so wise. Kind of be careful who you get advice from, or be careful whom you seek advice from.
Yeah. And so I will end this part with that, life planning. There's the other paradigm that we talk about a lot in life planning is, there's sort of 4 resources that we all have. We have money. That's sort of the most famous resource, because again, there's numbers that we can associate with that. But there's time, right? So we think of our life is finite, even though we usually live every day sort of not necessarily with that assumption, but there is a countdown timer if we want to get one, and energy. So energy is an interesting one that I'll talk a little bit more about, and talent. So one of the really important things that often comes out when people do life planning is actually an example of in a book by George Kinder, who's the father of life planning. He uses the story of an example of a physician that he was doing life planning for, who actually was really unhappy, even though he had a good career, had a family, because he had this secret desire to want to be a rabbi. So he was really talented, because what kind of made him want to be a rabbi also was why he was a good physician, but what he really wanted was to get into that more spiritual aspect. And so that's an example of there's like a hidden talent there that some people don't necessarily realize until they really look deep and figure out, wow, there's this talent, whether it's artistic or creative, or whatever it is. So those are the 4 resources. Now the energy, I want to talk a little bit more about the energy, because I think out of the 4, the energy is the most essential, because in a way, energy is our life force, and it's got a combination of our mental health, our physical health, our spiritual health, and so a lot of and so the way I think about it is, how can we utilize money, time, and talent in a way that will also build up our energy. So that these are all the things that we sort of can play with in our minds when we think about what's the life that we really want to live.
I love it. Energy is, as you're saying it, I'm sort of seeing, you guys all know, like a wordle, where like the bigger the word, the more often it's said. Like energy is very much in the center large of a wordle that I would make. I must say that word 50 times a day. How's your energy? What can we do to improve your energy? What can I do to improve my own energy? What kind of energy am I having? All sorts of things. But you're right. It's kind of the fuel that drives everything else. And how we spend our money, our time, or our talent, if it's low energy, it's like a car that's just kind of puttering along. Like it doesn't have that oomph, that meaning. But if it's high energy, and that doesn't necessarily mean like not sleeping and go and caffeine, it can be more of a, kind of like a subtle, the word that's coming to mind is like a beautiful energy, a calm energy. High doesn't necessarily just mean high octane, but a good sustaining energy allows us to take the other resources so much further.
Yeah. And I have started to try to reevaluate my life based on what brings me energy, because I think it is so essential, because we don't always know, because we may think, well, this is what we want, but then I reevaluate, how is this, as far as, how is this feeding my energy, or not feeding, or taking away energy. And so, yeah.
Rachel just shared something. So we do a weekly meeting at Black Swan, our key performance meeting, our KPI meeting, and it's all sorts of things that you might imagine in a property management business, like what is our rent collected, how many units are vacant, how many units are in renovation, all sorts of those things. And the very first thing is, what is our energy? So we have an anonymous form that all of our team members fill out, and we ask it that way because it's like a pejorative in American culture to say, like, I'm in a bad mood or I'm not having a good day, even though those are perfectly reasonable, valid feelings to have at certain times. Energy is a little less emotional, right? And it's also different. Someone can be low energy but peaceful. So low energy is not necessarily bad, whereas maybe saying like low mood is kind of like, well, what's wrong with you, or shake yourself out of it, or any of those sorts of things, which is not a good culture to have in a team. So we ask, what is your energy? And then kind of build from there of how can we have a high energy week? How can we have a positive energy week? So yeah, thank you, Rachel, for sharing that. It's so much we love energy. I'm telling you, it's like the center of my wordle if I had one.
I love it. So, so this is, so we are going to, get into the more interactive portion, where if you're driving, then just sort of think in your mind. But if you're, not driving, you can get out your pen and paper, because we are going to do some reflective exercises. But before as we sort of prepare for that, and Rachel or Elaine, if you can share the questions, I'll introduce them. Yeah. But if anyone wants to share in the chat, like, sort of any thoughts that they have so far, or any realizations or comments, please go ahead and do that as we're transitioning.
Or any questions. This might be a good time if someone wants to either pop a question in chat or even unmute and ask a question. Any thoughts or reflections anyone has? All right.
I have one thought to think about.
Yeah.
I hear some of these kind of podcasts and mindset, and talking about coaching and planning, and a lot of times people do not address the fact that in the real world, you have your families, you have your spouse, you have your children. So a lot of this, I just think it's kind of important. I wish that people would talk more about that, because if you have two working spouses trying to figure out what's the best possible, road to take. There's a lot of compromising, and so I just find that I find some of this when I do hear all this kind of stuff, I'll go out of the room and I'll be walking down the hall. Say I went to a conference and someone's talked about this. I'm like, well, I think it's very helpful, but at the same time, some people are in different situations where you have to work with your spouse, and that is not, what you want, and it takes a lot of give and take in a lot of situations. So I just wished, I guess, that more people would kind of talk about that, because it's great to figure out that you do have the real world that has your boundaries, and so anyway, that's all I was going to bring up.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I'll give sort of a silly example from my own life. So when I first started doing life planning engaging in life planning for myself, there's one of the fun things that I had some very serious things like be a good mom and a wife and all those things. But one of the fun things that popped up that was kind of unexpected for me was I wanted to go scuba diving. I've never, my parents never did this. This is totally a foreign thing to me, but I just thought it would be so cool to be in the ocean and just to float and just see all the amazing life that's in the sea. And so I told my husband, who thought, okay, I don't know if I want to go, but that sounds okay. And so we eventually went on this trip, and my kids, I have 3 kids too. So, talking about family, they're kind of too young to go. But I told my husband how cool I thought this would be. And he was supportive, even though he didn't necessarily want that dream for himself. So I just went on my own. And, for that half day, he was with the kids while we're on vacation, and it was amazing. And so I think and that was sort of, and then I felt like, wow, this is even better than my dream when I was sort of just envisioning how cool it would be. And so that's an example of, how I made that work, even though my husband didn't necessarily have the same dream. And because I felt so fulfilled doing that, like I would love to give him something where, maybe it's not the same dream that I have, but that he wants to do. And so it doesn't necessarily have to be, like a crazy adventurous experience, but, whatever it is. And I think that's an example of how we don't necessarily have, even when you have, people in your life that you care about, they don't necessarily need to have that the same details in their life plan and their dreams for us to be supportive of each other.
Yeah, I concur with that a great deal. I think when I think of mindset in an interpersonal relationship, I don't necessarily think that the tactics necessarily have to agree. Obviously, it makes it easier, right? If Weili's husband had said, yeah, I really want to go scuba diving too, let's research it together, those sorts of things, that might make it easier. I don't necessarily know that it would necessarily make it more enjoyable. Maybe it would. Maybe kind of the quiet and the solitude of doing it alone was very enjoyable. I think of mindset as strategy, as getting with the people that one is close to, spouse, children, if they're old enough to participate, close loved ones, even close coworkers, and saying, what are our values around communication? What are the sort of rules that we're going to play by? So like in our business, one of our values is radical transparency. And so that's something we talk about when there are like problems in our business. For example, when one of our property managers maybe saw something at a property or wrecked a company vehicle, who knows what it is. There's bad news that has to be shared a lot of the time in life. That's just a fact of human life. But letting the people around us know that the mindset that we live in is radical transparency, and we welcome problems and we enjoy problems because it's an opportunity to serve one another. It's an opportunity to come together and make a situation better. That wrecking a company vehicle is not a big deal. Failing to tell us about it is a big deal. Telling us about it with shame is I wouldn't, that's like less of a big deal, right? But we would encourage someone if we noticed that maybe there was shame in their voice or their body language. We would say, you have nothing to be ashamed of. People make mistakes. This is an accident. So long as this wasn't negligence or drunk driving or those sorts of things, we welcome these challenges because they allow us to improve together. Let's think about maybe how this could have been prevented, or improving our liability insurance, or whatever, versus we need to open a file and there's disciplinary action, or something like that. Like, to me, that's how mindset sort of sets that frame. And of course, the closer someone is, there's a duality there, that sharing mindset can be easier because you're very close with them and you have a lot of time to maybe talk with them over dinner and those sorts of things. But it can also be harder because we know that close relationships often carry years or even decades of ingrained communication patterns, ingrained ways of thinking, ingrained ways of maybe sharing money or dividing up the responsibilities around money. And so it can take some time to share the kind of the benefits of mindset with others. But a big part of it is just being an example of what is possible. Maybe it's something I hear a lot from investors is married couples who disagree on how to manage money. And I've learned from having very intimate calls with people that as many marriages as there are that many ways to manage money. Some people put it all in one bucket. Some people have 2 buckets. Some people have 3 buckets. Some people have different savings accounts for different things, all sorts of things. But let's say someone wants to change it, right? Maybe that's like a tactic that they want to change, is the way that money is handled in that marriage, but it's been handled that way for 25 years, long time. The way someone might approach that, coming from a place of having maybe learned or practiced some of these mindset skills, might be first talking about the values that one has and the goals that one has that open the door to changing tactics. So as an example, a conversation without intentionality might be, hey, I really don't like the way we're handling money. I know this is the way we've always done it. It's the way your parents did it and my parents did it, but I'm opening a new account tomorrow and doing it my own way. That might really scare someone, right? They might wonder, is there a divorce coming? Has there been infidelity? Has my spouse lost their mind? Did they spend a bunch of money that I don't know about? Did they win the lottery and I don't know about that? That might really generate some fear for someone, right? Versus a conversation and action, consistent action of, I'm so dedicated to this marriage. I care so much about you. I'm listening to these podcast things and these mindset things, and they talk so much about how the people we surround ourselves with really shape the trajectory of our life. And I'm so grateful that it's you. And I'm really committed to open and honest communication in our marriage. Is there anything you want to talk about? Anything that you want to do that might improve our marriage? And maybe they say something, I wish we ate differently or at a different time. Okay, good. I'm committed to help me understand that. Why is that important to you? Why is it important to you that we have dinner by 7 o'clock every night? Oh, okay, so that you can sleep better. That's really hard for me because I like to eat later, but let's really try that. I'm committed to you and I care about what's on your mind. Something that's on my mind is maybe when we got married, we started handling money the way our parents did. And we were young and we didn't really question it. And we didn't really ask ourselves, is this really what we want for ourselves? Have you ever thought about that? Is there anything you would want to change? I've maybe thought that we should put our money together, take our money apart, whatever it is, whatever the change is that someone wants. That's how I see mindset helping people, is setting the framework and the structure around communication and coming from the heart instead of the head. The head says, I don't like the way my spouse is managing money. And I'm not saying that's the situation of what you've brought up here. That's a common thing that I talk about, right? Because people call me to talk about money. And it's so funny because I might have a call at noon and the spouses put all their money in one bucket and they hate it. And I might have a call at 1 o'clock and the spouses have 2 different accounts and they hate it. So there's truly no right or wrong. It's just, have we done this with intentionality? Have we really thought about how do we want to handle money or time with kids or time with in-laws or health or sex, whatever the thing is? If we're talking about a spouse relationship, if it's a coworker, Maybe it's how do we handle time off? How do we handle when someone is sick? How do we cover for each other when there's an emergency? How do we cover when there's not an emergency and someone just wants to get away to a family wedding or, a family vacation? Let's talk about these things intentionally from the heart, not the head. And that's how being an example of living mindset principles can kind of move someone along, even if they've never heard about mindset before, or they've heard about it and they don't like it, or whatever it is. Those are kind of some of the things that come to mind there. Was any of that helpful?
Very helpful. Thank you. No, very helpful.
Good. Absolutely. Reminds me so much of what someone said in chat here. I want to give credit where credit's due. Tim said, I agree that many people are not intentional. It's something I'm trying to get better at. Tim saying that's something he's trying to get better. People spend more time planning a party than their life. I think that's very true, right? And so much of mindset is being intentional. Going through these 3 questions that we're going to go through tonight, really getting out a pen and paper, a keyboard, whatever it is that you need, but really going through these together, not just listening. Listen passively if you have to, if you're driving or in surgery or something like that. But if you have the ability, I really encourage you to truly think through these things, because it's the intentionality that drives us forward. Yeah. Lois asked a question. What if something that brings you energy, keeps you up late, then you don't get enough sleep and are low energy all the next day? Is that thing that brings you energy and kept you engaged and up half the night a good thing or a bad thing? That's a cute question. Weili, what do you say?
I love that. As a sleep doctor who is also a night owl, I totally relate to that, because there are some people that sort of get more energy at night, right? And then most of us have to live on this more of a morning person schedule, because that you got to go into work early. So I would say that you can reflect on that, and maybe that was worth it, right? Maybe that amazing experience that you had staying up at night was worth it. But you can also kind of think back, the next few days, like, wow, if I really had a horrible next 2 days, was it really worth it? And then maybe next time adjust a little bit. But I would say that, that it doesn't take away from how amazing that experience was when you did stay up.
Yeah. I think energy is more than how we physically feel, right? So I think about like when someone is like young and in love, right? They might like stay up all night on the phone with their beloved or with their beloved, and they're really tired the next day, but they have kind of that energy about them, right? Like even a stranger knows that they're glowing. There's something about them. And projects can sometimes, give us that feeling, that sense of connection, that sense of purpose. So, I'm all for good restorative sleep. As a mother of 4, sleep is like really high on my priority list. But there are times when, I'm tired during the day, and I might be able to shift my energy because I might remind myself, how lucky am I that I get to be awake with my children at night? How lucky am I that I get to have them? Right. So that's like a shift in energy that someone might have. Does it give me like all sorts of physical stamina immediately? Probably not. Maybe once in a while, but you can't just like power through it all. But it might allow me to appreciate the exhaustion in a different way, and to be okay with it, and to think, is there something I can change about my schedule tonight, or something I can do to give myself more physical rest? But here in this moment, I might be physically tired, but I have energy because I feel gratitude for the reason why I'm tired. So if it's this, something's keeping you up kind of half the night because you're excited to work on it the next day, you might be dragging. But when you feel that sort of feeling of like, oh man, I'm really tired. Wow, I'm really tired because I had something that took me into flow. And that is such a beautiful human experience. I'm so grateful I had that experience. Deep breath, get some sunshine, walk around a little bit, get a glass of water, coffee maybe, and then kind of get that energy that comes from a place of gratitude. Those are kind of some things. Good questions, you guys. Thank you. You ready for me to share the screen?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's do
so
it.
This is the time to get your pen and paper out, everyone. So these are the 3 life questions from George Kinder, the father of life planning, as Weili shared, that she will walk us through here. Can everyone see them okay?
Yeah, so what I can see them on my screen well. And so I will read through them and just do a little quick explanation. And then Elaine, if you could, whoever's controlling the screen, if you could maybe make all 3 of them visible so that
Right now?
when people, yeah, or later, that's fine. So I'll just read through it first.
Okay.
So question number 1, and so you know, once we sort of do a pause, you can everyone can just kind of answer at their own pace. But they're meant to be done in order. Okay, so question number 1.
And Weili, let me interrupt for a second. Is this where we want people kind of putting it into chat? Do we want people to raise hand to share, or do we want just to kind of go through it?
So this
Individually right
part, I think so feel free to share in the chat, but I think for the benefit of the attendees, if you just want to write it on your own sheet of paper or type on your computer, and then certainly feel free to share in the chat. We're going to do after this, then we're going to do another exercise, and that one where we're actually going to do visualization, sort of based on some of the answers here. And that one I would love for people if they just want to unmute and share when we're done with that. So,
Okay.
So this is mostly of a what an introverted sort of reflection. So question number 1, I want you to imagine that you are financially secure, that you have enough money to take care of your needs. And if you also feel like you have to be responsible for your family, so you can add also your family now and in the future. The question is, how would you live your life? Would you change anything? Let yourself go. Don't hold back on your dreams. Describe a life that is complete, that's richly yours. So I think this is a fun question, probably pretty self-explanatory. You know, just go ahead and have fun and don't, you know, just use your imagination and answer that one. And then after you finish that one, we'll move to question number 2. And question number 2, it's a little bit more serious. Okay, just bracing ourselves. This time you visit your doctor who tells you that you have only 5 to 10 years left to live. The good part is you won't ever feel sick. The bad news is that you will have no notice of the moment of your death. What will you do in the time you have remaining to live? Will you change your life? And how will you do it? And just for a clarification, question 2 does not assume you're financially secure. So you have the same financial resources that you have right now in your life, but now you just have this additional news that your time is now 5 to 10 years left. Okay, so that's how to kind of answer that one or think of that one. And then question number 3, this one is even more serious. This time, your doctor shocks you with the news that you have only 1 day left to live. Notice what feelings arise as you confront your very real mortality. Ask yourself, what did I miss? Who did I not get to be? And what did I not get to do? And just for clarification, for those of us who are go-getters, question number 3 is meant to be a reflection. So it's not necessarily like a to-do list of what you're doing in the last 24 hours of your life, you know, like you don't need to write like, I got to, you know, execute my will or, you know, sign this, notarize this. It's just more of a reflection of just, you know, kind of think deep into your life and what are the things that you miss? Who did you not get to be? What did you not get to do? So if you have any questions about these questions, feel free to put it in the chat or unmute yourself. But I think we will maybe allot maybe like 7-8 minutes.
You want me to put a little music on?
Whatever is helpful for people.
Yeah,
And then I
I'll try a
will,
little calm music here.
okay. And then I think what I'll do is I'll just give a warning at maybe 3 minutes and 1 minute.
Okay. And everyone should be able to see all three questions. So feel free to look at that. And then I'll put a little music on.
So we're about halfway through our time, and I want to, give you the chance to keep to keep answering, but I would just want to encourage you to, because I talked about how, this is the fun part, the imagination, the right brain. So to really let go of your fears and let go of your sort of skepticism and just answer these from your heart, from that heart space. And again, question one is, where you imagine that life, when you're financially secure, and how would you live your life? How would you change your life? And then question two is, if you only have 5 to 10 years to live, what would you do in the time you have remaining? And question three is, if you find out that you only have 1 day left to live, embrace those feelings that come up when you confront your very real mortality, and ask yourself, what did I miss? Who did I not get to be? And what did I not get to do? So we'll give you another few minutes. So some of you have already, let us know that you're done with your answers, which is great. Maybe others of you are still finishing up. We'll just take like 1 more minute, but go ahead if you are done and you want to share any reflections or any part of your answers, feel free to share that in the chat. We would love to hear that before we're going to build on the answers that we answer in this exercise, and then we're going to use it in the next exercise.
I just want to take a moment as we're wrapping up here to honor all of you. I happened to catch our participant count right before we started the 7 or 8 minutes here of reflection, and every single one of you stayed. And I just want you to take a moment to thank yourself for giving yourself this time and for really playing full out and really participating in this. It's been my experience that the folks that are intentional about thinking about what they want out of life, both retrospectively and prospectively, are the folks that find the most happiness. But this is hard work, right? This is not necessarily always easy work, even just finding time on a Monday night. No doubt there are many work schedules and many other significant others and children and other people that are asking for the time of the people on this call. And so I just want to take a moment to honor all of you for really giving this time to yourself tonight.
Yeah. Yeah, this is time. Sometimes it's hard to get in the habit of just spending some quiet time to sort of listen to ourselves and to really get to know ourselves. It's certainly a useful habit to have, but I feel like it's even more powerful. We do it together as a group. Oh, I see. Someone wrote that he's eager to ask his wife these questions. Yeah. Yeah, life planning is powerful as an individual, but also as a couple. So it looks like a lot of us are finishing up, and don't worry if you haven't finished, you can add to your answers. So this is, you have these questions, you got your paper, you can always add. And if you're driving or couldn't write anything down, even if you took that time to reflect, and then feel free to write that down later. And a lot of people are saying that they have answers that are similar between 1 and 2 with question 1 and 2. So, okay, so this is even more fun, this next part. And this next exercise is going to build upon the answers that you gave for question 1, 2, and 3. So you can, have those in front of you or, in your mind. And this time we are going to do a visualization exercise. Literally, we are going to, you have your paper, and if you have color pencils, you can use them, but we're just going to draw. And so this is, I'm going to, if you're able to close your eyes, go ahead and just close your eyes and take a few relaxation breaths. So, you're taking a deep breath in and an even slower breath out. And now you're going to imagine a moment in 2023, and you can pick a date. I encourage you to pick a date, at anywhere, from January 1st to December 31st, 2023. And on this date, imagine a moment in your life. And this moment is filled with all the elements that are really important to you, that you make you feel like you're coming alive. And so as you're imagining this moment, some of the things that you may be imagining is, where are you? Where are you standing? What are you doing? And how do you feel when you're in this moment, when you're in this place? And who are you with? Who are you with when you're in this ideal moment that makes you feel alive in 2023? And what do you see? What do you hear? And just imagine this moment. What do you taste if you're eating something? And so just imagine this moment using all of your senses. And don't worry about your drawing abilities. If you're an artist, feel free to go all out, but you can also just use stick figures, and feel free to embellish your drawing with just words, right? You can you can write words to describe the scene. And so that's it. It's simple. that's the next exercise. So go ahead and we'll just spend maybe 3 minutes or so doing that. Okay. And if you are like me, I was really uncomfortable doing this exercise because I felt really bad about my inability to draw. So don't worry, stick figures will work. It's just a visualization. And if the drawing's what's hanging you up, then just work on imagining in your mind. And then whatever you have on the paper is just some representation of what's in your mind, even if it's just, several words.
And Weili, it sounds like you really want people to focus on that visual aspect. So not necessarily writing down, I'm at the park with my dad. You really want them to
Picture,
draw it and to visualize it, because that activates a different part of the brain.
Yeah. So picture, imagining almost like a movie, right? Like you're in your own movie. This movie is the perfect moment in your life, sometime in 2023. Pick a date, make it as real as possible, but use your imagination.
I'll put a little music on for us for a few minutes here.
How's everyone doing with their mental picture and also their picture, their drawing? And it's okay if you need a little bit more time, but if you are done, feel free to write down in the chat so we know. Okay, I have one done. So this is where this is the part where I'm also really excited about is I would love for anybody that's done, or even if you don't have a complete picture, to unmute and just share with us this moment, and you can feel free to share the actual drawing that you made, if you want to do that, or you could just describe it to us, describe to us this moment, and you could also, if you want, share a little bit about how that relates to how you answered questions 1 to 3. So I love to hear from any of you, and even if you haven't finished drawing the picture but you started visualizing, just share that with us, because I'm so excited to hear.
Would any brave souls like to break the ice for us tonight?
And the other thing that I put in the chat, but I didn't have a chance to say this, is when we're imagining and when we're visualizing, don't worry about, well, is this going to come true? Like, can this come true? Or what if it doesn't come true? Don't even worry about that. I don't know if Dr. Una is still on this call, but Dr. Una is a mentor of mine. And, she came up with this wonderful saying that there is no imagination police. And so we don't have to limit our imagination. It's free, first of all. And we don't have to worry about, well, how can that come true? It's just, when we're just visualizing and just reflecting. Yeah, there we go. When we're visualizing and just reflecting, that we can just we can think and imagine whatever it is that we want, picture whatever it is that we want.
So I guess I'll
can
go.
share. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, we have several volunteers.
So I have a picture of myself sitting outside in front of a fire pit, and it's sunset, and it's all around me. There's the shades of lavender and pink, and the sun setting, and it just feels so still. And at that moment, and I have nowhere to go, and I can finally just take a deep breath and just sigh it out and not think about work and what I need to do at the next moment. It's just so peaceful. Just sitting there, and I feel like the universe is just loving me, and it's just that moment of just being so happy. And then I wrote down, and then from that moment, I'd be surrounded by people who really get me and love me for who I am, where I can be just totally free of all pretenses, and just really honest with people, and they just love me. So that was my little moment.
Wow. I love that. And I could picture myself sitting there with you and seeing the colors in the sky and feeling the warmth of the fire pit. Oh, I love that moment. Did you pick a date?
That I did not do.
So when will it be?
Oh, I guess it would have to be maybe April, May.
Okay. So April 2023.
Yeah, either April, May, or it can't be in the summer because I wouldn't be sitting around a fire pit. But either that, or I guess October, November of next year.
Yeah, and I love that you pick it as you visualize this moment, that you're also visualizing and feeling the happiness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a really amazing just feeling just that moment. So thank you so much for this visualization practice.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you so much for sharing that. I love that moment, and there's no reason why this can't come true many times for you. March, April, May.
A second round in October and November.
Right.
Thanks for sharing that. It's a gift. And I think there was another brave soul who wanted to volunteer. So please unmute yourself and share with us.
Hey, it was me. So mine was that this paper that I have been procrastinating on, I finished it and it was published. So it's a super impactful study that I run in Thailand, and we're just finishing, like closing out now. So the data is ready. And last week there was a really exciting meeting where I discussed the results with a lot of different stakeholders. People are like super energized about it. And like, where's the publication? And I'm like, oh yeah, that's on my to-do list. But I so that was my moment, was visualizing that it was published. It made a big impact on funding and elimination of hepatitis C globally for drug users. And I was with I was with people who worked on the study, all the nurses and funders, and in a similar, I think, venue, I guess, as the workshop or the meeting that I was in last week, because there was just such, really exciting energy in the room, being like, these results are awesome. We need to get them out there. Let's, expand. Let's do more. So I'm really trying to take that energy forward and being like, okay, I'll write the paper. And also to get back to, I actually wanted to be a writer when I was younger, like before medicine, before everything. It was something that really resonated with me. And then now, I don't know why lately I've been like, this is a chore. I don't like it. But I really want to embrace like the identity of being a writer again, whether that be for, this or something else. And that was something that came up in the previous like life planning questions you brought up. So yeah, as part of the moment where we're celebrating this publication, I'm also celebrating, or returning to that identity of writer and writing.
Wow. So powerful. And I can, as you're describing it, I can feel your energy.
Yeah, I'm energized. Thank you. Even though I'm super jet lagged. I'm in San Francisco now from Bangkok, so different time zones.
Yeah. Wow. Well, so glad that you could join us, because it probably would be
Yeah,
harder if you
thanks.
were
It was
in
actually
Thailand.
it's a better time. I was like, oh, this is a time that I can join. All right, it popped up in my Facebook feed. So good job, Weili, for posting. Usually I'm like, I can't. Well, actually, maybe I could. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing that, and to share that identity that you have as a writer, and to sort of tell us all about it, and to visualize that in a moment. That's so powerful. Would anybody else, any other brave souls? This is fun, right? So this is just, and there's no rules, right? So you can just picture a scene.
I'll go again. I don't want to hog the conversation,
No, we'd love to hear from you.
Please go.
only if nobody else wants to go. So we are moving to New Jersey I'm doing a 1-year interventional pain fellowship, and I'm 53, so it's going to be a big change. And so we have to find a place to live, and we've got to decide whether to rent or sell our house. And my daughter's going to be starting college at Georgia Tech. And so it's just a lot going on. My son's already in college, but he should be okay. Anyway, so my scene is Stephen and I are somewhere on the top of some restaurant, or has some good view up in New Jersey, where we can see the skyline and the water. And it's just we're going to be kind of somewhat settled, because hopefully he'll be enjoying his job. And I'm sure I'll be enjoying my fellowship, because I love learning new procedures and stuff. So I'm excited about that. And then I'm hoping we'll have the phone and talking to our daughter, and she's doing great. And hopefully we'll have our phone and talking to our son, and hopefully he's doing great. And so that's my happy scene. When everybody in the family's happy, then I'm happy.
And as you picture yourself here, and you call your daughter, and she says, I'm not just doing great, I'm doing fantastic. I'm loving this life that I'm living. And your son, when you call him, also tells you this, and you're just sitting there, and you feel so satisfied. Like this is, this just feels right for you and your husband. And how does that feel?
Oh, it feels good. Awesome. Very relieving, seeing as there's a lot of unknowns right now in my head. So it's one of those feelings that, yes, there's going to be some, will be sort of on, a little bit on the other side. The real future on the other side after the fellowship is totally unknown as well, but I'm just trying to be a little more realistic right now. So
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
very,
I,
very happy.
I love that.
I'm thinking about from the perspective of your children, what an example you're setting for them of living a full life on your own terms, regardless of age, the financial setback that comes from going back into training, the fear that goes into that, maybe the fear of what will it be like training with people who are a different generation than me, but like what an example that you're setting for them. And I'm kind of imagining them on the other side of that phone and what it must feel like for them to have that seed planted in them of, oh, well, if mom's living her life the way she wants to, despite fear and changes of physically where she's living, financially what's happening, what's the training going to be like, the extra commitment that goes into a fellowship, like maybe that's possible for me too. Maybe there's something that they want, that they're daydreaming, that they're dreaming about, and that you kind of give them that fuel. Wow, what a gift to yourself and to your family.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
No, thanks. Thank you for doing this. This has been great.
Anybody else want to share their vision and their scene in 2023?
I'll be happy to share. I actually had 3 visions, and they were all in very different settings. And so my first vision is I'm on the coast. It's perfect 70-degree weather. The waves are splashing on towards the beach. We're in a very remote island, and I am watching my husband wave to the kids, and the kids are playing on the sand. I have 2 children, almost 3-year-old and a 4-year-old. And I'm just looking at them, feeling blessed that we're all together and that we're all healthy to just be with each other in this very remote area. And I think that, and then there's a yacht waiting for us, anchored near the shore. And I think this probably arises from just wanting some peace during this holiday season, and also just trying to quiet down the craziness of our busy lives, and just having that moment. Thank you, baby. My child was drawing too next to my almost 3-year-old. So he's saying it's for you. Mommy. Yes, baby. Small one. Okay, go ahead and get another one here. Thank you. And so I think that that's where that image was coming from. And then the second image is all 4 of us are standing together, looking at the Eiffel Tower, and just really looking at the possibility of what life can bring for us. And again, it's just, I think, being together. I think the very last question, number 3, really stirred for me. Like, what was one, like, I guess, what were your regrets or something like that? And I just said, spend more time with my kids. So I think this just really manifested, really creating more time in my future to be present, which I really am, but, just clinically, it gets a little chaotic. And then the third image is getting a Nobel Prize for my innovation on my diagnostic method to diagnose viral illnesses non-invasively. And so I'm on stage wearing a really cool outfit with high heels, very almost like tweed-like dress, and very fitted. And I'm accepting this award with another scientist. So those were my 3 images.
Wow. Those are so amazing. All so different, but so amazing. And I'm just, smiling as I'm hearing all of this. And what gifts that you're sort of giving yourself as you're visualizing these scenes come true. Wow. And I love your imagination.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for giving us this space to do this. It's very, very helpful.
Yeah, you're so welcome.
Mhm.
So anybody else that wants to share their vision, I could just listen to these all night long.
Nancy shared in the chat that doing this brought tears to her eyes and happiness. She was visualizing one of her goals for 2023 becoming real, and it made the feeling of her whole body tingling. And Karen shared that going through this exercise is making her feel very emotional and tearful. Those are probably some common themes that the two of them shared there in chat.
Oh, I love that. And thank you for saying that, because that actually is one of the goals in life planning, is to really make it real, right? Like when we confront our mortality, and so there's, you can't help but have emotion behind that. And when we have the emotion, that's really when we get deep into our heart space. And when we're in our heart space, that's when we can really be honest with ourselves. Because it's one thing to talk about, the framework, and these are the different ways to think about it. And that's important, because I like to think also, but really to answer these for yourself, to answer, how do I live a meaningful life? What's the life that I want to live? What's important to me? These really are heart questions. And so I love that you guys are making that observation.
Any final shares before we wrap up?
I love to hear at least one more if you want to share.
Okay, I'll say.
Thank you.
So I started with this fast fire movement, and now going into this die with zero movement and everywhere. And then talking to so many people, listening to a lot of podcasts, I'm like, what I'm doing, like, why am I still grinding? Do I need to? Are my kids happy? And after going all these COVID days and seeing kids suffering, I'm like, okay, what I'm doing with my life? Then we decided to go abroad. So we went to Portugal and came back and like, oh, I think I need to change my life. And listen to everything that you said, and I was like, oh, everything makes sense, right? So yeah, my vision, what I painted is next year, next to the same Christmas tree here, me and my family celebrating that we got our goals of the gap year and the business and everything else. So my heart's still pounding. It's like so hard to say. Yeah, thank you so much.
Wow. That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your journey.
It's that is a level of visioning that I've never heard of before. So yes, thank you for sharing that inception there of I am envisioning my future self having achieved all of the milestones that I wanted, and that those milestones were around wellness and what you really want out of life. Wow.
Yeah, so powerful.
Well, thank you to everyone that shared.
I to add one last thing. Sorry. So your 5 years of life, I'm like, okay, I'm leaving kids the money, but do they know how to spend it? Are they going to be okay with the money? Are they going to be like crazy? Oh, I don't know. The money just kept flowing, or they're conscious. So I say, okay, I just told my husband, we need to teach the kids to be financially responsible, to have our same core values with the money and know what to do. Yeah, how to fish themselves, even they're still young, but then, yeah, never too early.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Weeks of traveling. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, everybody. I'm just so honored to be able to be part of this community hour, and I just appreciate that so many of you have stayed on for so long. It's probably getting quite late or running into your dinner times, depending on your time zone. And I just so appreciate your time and your attention and your presence. And this is it's just really an honor. And as I was saying before, I'm just thank you so much, Elaine, for having me.
Absolutely. Rachel will share some links in chat, and we'll also have them in the replay email that goes out. So ways to stay in touch with Weili. So she has a podcast, offers life planning services. If you liked this, keep coming back to this. Keep coming back to this voice, whether it's the podcast or connecting with her directly. So Rachel will put some of those links there in chat. And then is there anything that you would like to add, Weili, about ways that people can contact you?
So daretodreamphysician.com is my website. And then from there, you can contact me. You can also learn a little bit more about life planning. I have had group programs in the past. I also just do one-on-one life planning. And and it's really it's my passion. I want to help people figure out what is it that they really want out of their life. And while and in my podcast, I talk to people that have had all sorts of amazing life experiences and what they've learned and what they teach us. But my belief is, we don't necessarily need to have this terrible life event like cancer or a house fire, or things like that to really start waking up to living the life that we want. So that's what I would love to work with people on if they want to do that. And the podcast is I put out a episode every week, and so it's just more ways to get inspiration and stories.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming tonight. I think you've added a ton of value here. A great time for us to reflect at the end of the years, really think about and really visualize and make it very real what we want in 2023. I'll end by saying everything in the world, everything that I can see, everything that all of you can see was first seen inside of a human. Like, really think about that. Like, that's such a simple thought, but also a really profound, grand thought that everything is first seen in the inner world before it can be seen in the outer world, whether that's a simple glass of water or someone getting us off of this planet. It all has to be seen inside of a human before it can be seen in the outer world. And you've given yourself the gift tonight of practicing that, maybe for the first time, maybe for the manyth time. And it's just like Weili said, it's a muscle that you're using, that you're making stronger. But this gift of visualization allows us the opportunity to create the outer world to match our inner world. And our inner world, when we give it the space to dream, can really come up with some really amazing things. So I'm just so excited for this new year for everyone, and a new opportunity to really think about what we want in life. And I'm so grateful that you were here for our community hour this month, Weili. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. There's some links there in the chat. Rachel also put in, we have a Google form for feedback. We'd love to get your feedback. We're always thinking about what we can do to improve community hours. Actually, through that feedback, that there was a request for guests and kind of bringing all of the amazing people that we have in our community to share all of you with each other. So we'd love any feedback you have about things that you liked, things that you didn't like that we can improve on. There's no such thing as bad feedback. We'd love to hear from all of you. with that, we will call it a night. Happy holidays to everyone. Happy New Year. Fund 2 closes on December 23rd. So if you're finishing up your paperwork or your funding, or you have any final questions, please reach out to myself or Nick or Rachel. The technology fund closes on Friday, so even a little more time sensitivity on that one, but we're here if you have any questions. Otherwise, we will connect with all of you for our community hour in January. I'm not sure if we have the date or the topic set yet, but it will be amazing. And if you have any topic suggestions, feel free to put them into that form, or if you have any suggestions for speakers, either yourself or you want to mention someone else, we'd love to hear about that as well. So thank you all so much for being here tonight. Get some rest. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.